15.
So recording is already on.
So shall we start?
Yes.
Um, okay, so welcome back everyone. And we are moving on towards the next session that we have from 7:15. And this session will be chaired by Professor Abdul Matin from Jadavpur University. So I would now request our Bapin Malik Da to formally introduce our chair, and then this session will be continued with under his supervision. So over to you, Bapinda. You can introduce the chair, and then the other formalities can go on. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jahida. So this is session number 3, and once again, on behalf of BASE, Bengali Academy for Social Empowerment, Mahavidyalaya, Ambedkar Center for Cultural Studies, and Department of English, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar College, I heartily welcome you all to this session. And this session is going to be chaired by Abdul Matin. Abdul Matin is an assistant professor at the Department of International Relations, Jadavpur University, Kolkata. He has done his master's in political science from University of Hyderabad, and MPhil from the Center for Political Science, Political Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, and presently advanced PhD candidate at the same center. Mr. Matin has been the Badge Fellow at the University of Göttingen, Germany. His research interest broadly includes South Asian Islam, political sociology of Bengali Muslims, caste, social justice, and minority politics in contemporary India. So without further delay, I would like to hand over this virtual space to Professor Abdul Matin, sir, for chairing this session. Over to you, sir.
Good evening. Thank you so much, Professor Bapin, for your kind introductions. And I would like to, at the outset, I would like to thank BASE, Gaur Mahavidyalaya, and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar College for organizing this conference, as also for inviting me in to chair this session, third of technical sessions. Well, we have 5 presenters, and without much ado, already we are running 15 minutes late. What I'll do is that I'll go in that fashion, in that order, which is already reflected there in our schedule. Then we'll have a round of question answer. Without much ado, I would like to share that we have 5 papers. Faruk Mallick, assistant professor, then Mohammad Sarfaraj Nawab, PhD scholar at Central University of South Bihar, Mousrisha, research scholar at the Department of English, University of Kalyani, Mozamul Manzoor Khan, student of the Department of English, University of Kashmir, and Amitav Das, an independent scholar. They are papers from different fields, and now I am sure that Mr. Faruk Mallick is already here. If he is not here, then we will. Faruk Mallick is here, right? Okay. If he is not here, then we will go directly to another speaker, Mohammad Sarfaraj Nawab, PhD scholar at the department, at the PhD scholar at the Central University of South Bihar, and his paper is In Search of Home, narrating the cosmopolitan pains of homeless in Khaled Hosseini's Sea Prayer. This is over to Mohammad Sarfaraj Nawab. Please, this floor is yours.
Hello, am I audible, sir?
Yeah, you are audible.
Thank you very much. Good evening to everyone. Now, without wasting a second, I would directly get into my paper. That is titled that In Search of Home, narrating the cosmopolitan pains in Khaled Hosseini's Sea Prayer. So, as we all know that maybe some of you are already aware of the author that Khaled Hosseini is, an Afghan-American author. And the latest addition to his literary oeuvre is Sea Prayer, a novel that was published in 2018. And now the thing is that the novel is not totally a novel in the conventional way we have understood the term. Now, the novel is a kind of illustrated fiction where we find that a number of pictures are there. If I can turn on the video, I would like to make you see the pictures of the book. That this is the book where you can see that there are some pictures, and those pictures are accompanied by some texts. And see prayer from the very title, we can know that there is some kind of prayer that is going on. So let us talk about the book first before I get into the issues that I want to enter in this book, like that cosmopolitanism and the pathos and the refugee crisis and all. So this book is inspired greatly by a very tragic incident that happened in 2015. That is the death of the boy, the Syrian boy of Kurdish ethnicity, that is Alan Kurdi, who drowned in the Mediterranean Sea while trying to escape to the European shore. So that picture went viral, literally, and that global reach that that picture had invited great attention from the people. And Khaled Hosseini was no exception. He was greatly inspired, greatly kind of the pathos he had. He couldn't keep himself but writing a story about that. And that is how the novel gets into its form. So the novel talks about a family in a very short length. The book is only of 43 pages long. And the story that we have here is that of a family, a Syrian family that is trying to escape. And it is already all done in the backdrop of the Syrian crisis. So here the replica of that boy is created in the character of Marwan. And that father is trying to pray to God for the safe passage of his family through the sea. But before he does that, what he does is that he kind of reinvents the events, reinvents the space, the time that was there before the Syrian crisis, the Syrian refugee crisis began. And here we can see that the narrator father is kind of conjuring up images of the past days of the city of Homs, when there are so many the vibrant life that he had led as a child, and the family, how he had the familiar affairs done with his brothers, with his wife, with his sisters and all. But now that war has taken everything and they have no option but to flee the country. So now what we find is that the father is praying to God for the safe passage of his child and his mother through the sea. And as we can see that the novel just ends like that, whether that prayer is going to be granted or not, like the family will get the safe passage or not, that is left unsaid. Maybe Hosseini wanted to conjure up that image that that boy, the Alan Kurdi, is not dead. He was kind of the fatherly heart that he had, didn't want that boy to die. So he keeps that book like that only. So now coming to the terms that the novel is not only a kind of conventional novel like where we can read pages long, but the novel is of pictures. And why is that? So he deviates from the genre and not only creates a graphic fiction that is so much in trend today, but he creates a kind of different genre. That is, and these pictures are not drawn by Hosseini himself. They're drawn by another illustrator from London, that is Dan Williams. So he just poses with the text, and those texts are not like prosaic, they are poetic in form. So it is at the same time emotionally charged and at the same time supplementing each other. That is the pictures and the text. I will again show you one image that is of that the journey that is getting that is taking place of the refugee people, and how that journey actually that had to impact the world like never before. So that thing is here. And now I want to incorporate the ideas of cosmopolitanism and the idea of cosmopolitan pathos, the idea of cosmopolitan paints, the responsibility that we have as cosmopolitan so-called people. So the idea of cosmopolitan dates back to centuries before. And we can trace it back to the Enlightenment period, where Kant said so many things like, if the world peace has to be there, then all the nations across the world have to come together, and they have not to be they have not to be responsive and kind of responsible for the well-being of the people of their own country, but of the other people. So his famous term that his famous quote that comes that a violation of rights in one part of the world should be felt or is to be felt by everywhere, is to be by everyone. But now I try to modify that in the other sense that a violation that happens to human rights at any other place is not only to be felt but directly heard and seen, thanks to the social media and all the scientific advancement that we have today. But now the thing is that cosmopolitanism is here, and these stateless people who are also termed by Hannah Arendt when she refers to the Second World War thing, like the Heimatlosen, that means the stateless, those that are motherless people. They're like motherless people. Their motherlands have kind of have made them flee from their place. They are nowhere accepted, and the way we loudmouth ourselves of the cosmopolitanism and all that, we are now a kind of world citizens, not only citizens of the a particular nation, but world citizens. So what role do we have as cosmopolitan people? Now, if you look at the period that when that Syrian war, that Syrian thing began in 2011, so at least 4 million refugees emerged from that country only, and they tried to escape to different European countries, and how they were reacted, how different countries reacted to their pathos. That is a really important thing to know. Here we can say that from various sources we can get to know that the UK itself declared that it will intake only 20,000 refugees in the coming 5 years. And on the other hand, then we have the US declaration that they will invite only 10,000 people in their nation. So this is how the big countries are doing. So this is how the cosmopolitan culture is being practiced by all the people. So this cosmopolitan pains is something that I want to point from this novel, that Hosseini, who was otherwise writing about Afghanistan, he certainly felt that need, because this thing is important and this thing is real, and it came to the notice of the people, of the common people like us, who are so busy in our social media life, that we have to have a picture of that boy lying dead on the shore of the sea to get our nerves to that thing. So that thing is not only to be passed unnoticed, but to but needs immediate action, but needs immediate response from ourselves. So this is how also if you look at the Derridian concept of hospitality and all that, he says that hospitality is something that the conditions that are also made, the preconditions, when we impose some conditions before we allow some people to do something, to exist as they are. So the very notion of cosmopolitan somehow disperses the very idea. And also we have seen that the differences that comes, like why these people are not welcome, it is because of the religious difference, the cultural difference, and often it is desired that when these people are invited in one country to get that shelter, they have to kind of wear off their cultures. And in that context, there is a kind of famous remark by that Bruno Latour, that there is one famous remark by Bruno Latour who says that the refugees can only be accepted on the condition that they leave at the door all that is dear to them, their gods, their souls, their objects, their times and their space, in short, their ontology. So this is how that very idea of cosmopolitan is now being practiced. So we only loudmouth about that idea that we are now cosmopolitan people, and the very concept of cosmopolitan consists of the idea that cosmos, that is world, and polis, that means city. So we claim ourselves as citizens of the world, but the reaction of these xenophobic, rich, cowardly countries, that they are their kind of acceptance. If they do not accept, then who will accept? So these kind of issues emerge when we look at the present condition of things, and similarly the role that are played by the organizations like United Nations, about which Derrida in his letter in his last last interview in La Mode magazine, where he expressed his disappointment at the things that how these organizations have actually failed to some extent to create that world peace that is otherwise expected from them. So this is how the novel is all about, that the sea prayer, as we can see, the very title itself suggests the actual idea of the book, that there is a sea and there is a prayer, the prayer of the father. And the father here is like any other Syrian people. It is not only about the boy who is named Marwan in that book, or the boy that is who tragically died in that in that Mediterranean Sea. But it is all about all the people, the millions of people. If you can think about the Rohingya and all other people who are now facing persecutions in their country, and when they are in a flow from one country to another, and how this thing is not only kind of literary things, but how capitalism and all are also kind of contributing to that thing. So that is another important thing that we can take note of. And these literatures, and when this book was first published, that it got very little attention, because people thought that this is a children's book, and because that is consisting of various images, this is a children's book, and why should anyone take notice of that? Even now, very little things are being done or said about such kind of literary works. There are activist literature that we can understand as that. Khaled Hosseini, when he wrote that book, he was actually kind of had a kind of a humanitarian outlook about that, because he wrote that book on the condition that whenever one copy of that book will be sold, £1 will be going to the UNCHR, that is from where the refugees across the world can benefit. So this is how that literary activism and these books that directly address to the pressing issues of our time should be read, and that is my concern in that paper, I guess. I wind up like saying that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sarfaraj Nawab. I think what we'll do is that we will, at the end, we will have question and Q&A sessions for a short while, so that we can hear. But thanks for your interesting paper, and maybe later on we will discuss about the idea of cosmopolitanism, and of course you have very used the concept of Derrida, and it's a very important concept of the concept of Derrida's idea of hospitality, and how you use the hospitality and understand the global politics and political concepts. Anyway, thanks for this fascinating paper. Next speaker is Mousrisha Roy. She's a research scholar, the Department of English, University of Kalyani, and the title of her paper is In Quest of Home, Journey in Search of Identity in E.M. Forster's Maurice. This is over to Ms. Roy.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible. Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everyone. The words house and home are often used synonymously to mean the place one dwells in. However, while the former suggests the material building inside which one physically resides, the latter refers to a virtual space, within or without the boundaries of the household, which provides a sense of complete comfort and to which one's true self belongs. The actual source of this comfort is the freedom of the realization of one's self. Within the boundaries of home, one can speak and act freely without any fear of being judged. However, this assertion and realization of self is possible only at home, because to confront the outer world, one has to take resort of performativity constantly. One has to suppress one's real instincts and desires, supplanting them with the socially prescribed codes of conduct in order to gain social acceptance and validation. Thus, the fear of being judged negatively by the society compels one to always put on one's public self, which can be taken off only within the domestic sphere, where all members of a family know each other's shortcomings and accept them as they are. So, inside home, the sense of being loved overwhelms the fear of being judged, thus making one feel safe and comfortable. But this comfort and freedom is denied to the protagonist of E.M. Forster's novel Maurice. Being a person with a sexual orientation different from the only one approved by the heteronormative society, Maurice Hall has to hide his homosexual identity to prevent the mainstream society from treating him as an outcast. His primary struggle is, however, not against the societal forces themselves, but against the psychological constraints constructed by these forces. Understanding his own identity becomes a difficult task for him. Sexuality being an important part of identity, this difficulty pervades to the other aspects of Maurice's identity as well. As a result, Maurice lacks any concrete identity as the core of his being. He therefore is incapable of understanding his identity and remains muddled up about himself until towards the end of the novel, since he does not possess any home where he might feel safe enough to come in terms with his real identity. There are a number of places where Maurice resides, or at least temporarily stays, including his own house, the Cambridge, and Clive's estate, Penge. Yet none of these residential places succeed in providing Maurice with a home, which he ultimately finds towards the end of the novel in the small boathouse in the companionship of Alec. The whole novel therefore turns into Maurice's journey in search of his identity and in quest of his home. Maurice's desperate attempt to establish an individual identity can be traced during the vacation when he meets Miss Alcott. His turning into an atheist is not an expression of his own spiritual realization, but a result of his being convinced by Clive about it. In declaring himself an atheist, he is actually trying, on one hand, to follow Clive, and on the other, to project an identity which is different from his family members, and therefore would render him individuality. So instead of being happy, he becomes disappointed when his mother or sisters do not become much concerned about it. Maurice starts taking decisions about the household and about his future career, thus trying to prove his agency in the formation of his identity. In reality, however, he is only surrendering to the identity socially imposed on him, fitting himself into the socially prescribed position of a respectable, heterosexual, upper middle class Englishman. This is evident in his attempt to flirt with Miss Alcott just because he is socially supposed to be in romantic terms with women, although he himself feels no attraction towards her. His lack of genuineness makes the whole episode very odd to her. Nevertheless, Maurice is not conscious of his desire to gain social approval at the cost of denying his own self, and he mistakes the socially imposed identity as his true identity. As is suggested by the fact of his finding himself thinking and speaking like his family after this vacation, Maurice's personality is still not his own but borrowed from those around him, be it his family or Clive. Maurice can be himself only after he is able to accept his sexuality. The process of identity formation can never be free from social and familial influences because one can form their identity only by selecting certain identity factors from the ones already available to them. However, the decision as to which factors to choose should ideally depend solely on one's personal temperament. Although in many cases this decision is imposed on them by sociocultural forces. For Maurice, the problem is further deep-rooted. Since the identity factor which Maurice wants to adopt is not available to him. He is not aware of the existence of love or attraction between men being something valid and real. Here the politics of using language and culture as a mode of oppression becomes significant. For a long time in his life, Maurice can find no words with which he might describe his physical or emotional impulses. When he is upset for losing George, he cannot explain the reason of his sadness. Therefore, he succumbs to the excuse of being overtired, which is supplied by his mother. Heteronormativity structures language in such a way that language, even when used by someone unaware of these politics, becomes heteronormative. One method of this politicizing is the stigmatization of not only concepts but also words associated with non-normative people. As a result, Maurice never comes across any positive or even neutral representation of the love between males in his early age, and he does not know the term homosexual before Lester Jones mentions it. Therefore, Maurice refers to it as the unspeakable vice of the Greeks or an unspeakable of the Oscar Wilde sort. So because of his lack of exposure, when Clive first declares his love for Maurice, Maurice feels scandalized and horrified. Nonetheless, later Maurice acknowledges his love for Clive and realizes his sexual desire first for Clive and then, after separation with Clive, for other men. Yet, he is not ready to acknowledge his homosexual nature unless Lester Jones gives homosexuality a sanction. The relationship between Maurice and Clive Durham fails primarily because of Clive's inclination towards normativity. Although Clive believes his transformation from homosexuality to heterosexuality as biological, in reality this change is more psychological than physiological, since Clive feels attracted by the pleasures offered by heteronormativity, from which he has been deprived so far. While the men he admired were always either unconscious or puzzled of his admiration, Women recognized it and sometimes even responded to his admiration. He writes to Maurice, and I quote, "Against my will, I have become normal." Unquote. The use of the word normal itself suggests that his transformation does not take place entirely against his will. Nevertheless, it is not the ending of the relationship, but the very nature of the relationship itself, which prevents Maurice from realizing his identity. Although young Forster writes in his terminal note to the novel that Clive's rejection sends Maurice back to the prison from which Clive had earlier released him, in reality, Maurice is never out of prison. He is never at home during the relationship, since he is never allowed to be himself. He is not allowed to acknowledge his homosexuality because Clive, who dominates this relationship, makes an unspoken law to keep it platonic. Clive succumbs to the normative mind-body binary, believing in the stereotypical concept of true love being the union of minds and having nothing to do with physicality. Thus, the physical aspect of love is denigrated and the intellectual aspect is glorified, keeping in conformity with the ancient concept of love at the time of Plato. It is interesting to note that Clive tries to use Plato's symposium as a code while first declaring his love for Maurice. Indeed, Clive believes the love between men to have been the mainstay of Athenian society. He tries to structure their relationship in the pattern of pederasty of ancient Greece, where the Erastes would be older and would educate and protect young Eromenos. Nonetheless, while Clive is homoromantic at this point, Maurice is both homoromantic and homosexual. These two aspects form important parts of his identity, which he is compelled to hide from Clive. This concealment is beautifully instantified by the scene towards the end of chapter 21, where Maurice is afraid that Clive might comprehend Maurice's sexual desire by listening to Maurice's drumming heartbeats. Therefore, in order to enjoy the companionship of Clive, Maurice has to constantly play the role of being free from sexual desire. This performative aspect of this relationship makes it impossible for Maurice to feel the comfort of home in the companionship of Clive. After Clive's transformation and subsequent rejection, Maurice tries to divert his attention by focusing on acquiring severe self-discipline. However, after experiencing the desire to sexually assault Dicky and after encountering the elderly man in train who is desperate enough to make lascivious signals to a stranger, Maurice becomes worried about his own sexual orientation. Although the term homosexuality is not available to him, he is forced to face the fact that unlike other men, he feels attracted to men instead of women. Considering it a physical disorder, he seeks medical help. Here, M. Forster incorporates how even the scientific men, like the doctors, view homosexuality with stigma and ignorance. So, Joit, the first doctor Maurice talks to, believes that the proper place for homosexuals are mental asylums. Dr. Barry, a physician from whom Maurice expects the authentic, impersonal voice of science, dismisses homosexuality as rubbish, as an evil hallucination. So, disappointed with medicine, Maurice turns towards hypnotism on Risley's advice. By this time, he has lost all interest in finding any positive joy of his own sexual orientation. And the only desire left in him is to become quote-unquote normal so that he can marry a woman, which he views as a method of controlling his lust, of having children and acquiring social validation. As M. Forster writes, Maurice, and I quote, sought not happiness at the hands of Mr. Lascar-Jones, but repose, unquote. Nevertheless, Maurice's sexuality is rooted so deep in his psyche that despite several attempts, Lascar-Jones fails to make Maurice inclined towards women through hypnotism. Yet it is only from Lascar-Jones that he gets to learn about the practice of homosexuality, as well as the fact that homosexuality is not a criminal offense in countries like France or Italy. This not only makes him aware that homosexuals have always existed throughout history, but also gives him the confidence that since homosexuality is not considered a crime in many countries, therefore it might not necessarily be wrong. It is this confidence which relieves him from his guilt and makes him accept his sexual orientation, thus helping him in his later union with Alec. In forming a romantic relationship with Clive's gamekeeper, Alex Cadder, Maurice breaks the barrier of not only sexuality but also class. This shows how Maurice has declassed himself through a radical transformation from the position when, even as a child, he was extremely class conscious and believed working class men to be essentially different from gentlemen. While Lichtenstein considers the ending of the novel as unrealistic because an educated upper middle class man cannot live happily ever after with a person from the working class. Forster himself writes in the terminal note, and I quote, both the suburban youth and the countrified one are capable of loyalty, unquote. Therefore, Maurice feels that, I quote, his journey was nearly over. He was bound for his new home. He had brought out the man in Alec, and now it was Alec's turn to bring out the hero in him, unquote. Foster believed, and I am quoting from the terminal note, a happy ending was imperative. I was determined that in fiction anyway, two men should fall in love and remain in it for the ever and ever that fiction allows. And in this sense, Maurice and Alex still roam the greenwood. I dedicated it to a happier year, unquote. The happy ending could not be possible if Maurice would be a mere homosexual novel. But Alec is not a homosexual but a bisexual, and therefore he could have easily lived a heteronormative life by marrying a woman. Yet he prefers to go against the society only for the sake of the mutual love between him and Maurice. So, unlike Clive, who tried to control Maurice, both Alec and Maurice accept, love, and respect each other just as they are. Thus, the novel ends with the message of inclusion, suggesting that every person, irrespective of their sexual orientation, deserves to get true love, into which they may find their home. And it is because of finding this home that while earlier Maurice had no sense of belonging, now he finds that not only he and Alec belong to England, but England belonged to them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry that I had to write a message to wrap up, but it's excellent. And I will come to that point maybe in the discussions that how the idea of recognition, sense of self-respect, and the entire politics of criminalizing the sexual orientations. We'll come to that. Thanks for your brilliant presentations from E.M. Foster's idea. And I'm sure that it is a very good movie based on that novel. And I will recommend all of you to please have a look on that movie. Now I would like to call another speaker, Mozamul Manzoor Khan, a student of the Department of English, University of Kashmir, a home for Frankenstein's monster, understanding the contemporary human life, Sisyphean struggle for belonging. This is over to Mozamul Manzoor Khan. Please be brief, and as you know that we are a bit running short of time, but this is over to Mr. Manzoor. Well, Mr. Manzoor, are you here? Like, anyway, otherwise, we will put to another speaker, the last speaker, Amitav Das. Amitav Das, an independent scholar and an acceptance of province of homelessness, an urge for belongingness into Bangla novel. Abhijit Sen's Rohu Chandler Har or Suvankar Guha's Bior, a brief review. This is over to Mr. Amitav Das. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, thank you very much. My paper is regarding two Bengali novels. The both of them issued in the theme of homelessness and belonging. I'm sorry because I have a bit of viral fever today. So let me excuse me if I have cracked first. So I'm starting my presentation. These are the two novels that I'm showing. The first one is Rohu Chandler Har, written by Abhijit Sen, eminent Bengali novelist, and it's a quite old novel, published in 1985. And the second one is Bior. This is by Shubhankar Guha. He's a veteran novelist, but he writes very few novels, so we may not know him. But I have known him a few years back, though. So let me start my presentation. Sir. Can you see that, sir? the unacceptance of providence of homelessness and urge for belonging in two Bangla novels. Should I start, sir?
Yeah, please go ahead. Are you presenting
Okay.
something? We can't
Yes,
see
yes,
here.
yes.
I mean, like,
Okay.
you are.
Okay. So let me do it again, sir.
You share the screen so that yeah.
Can you see that, sir?
Yes, now coming. Yeah. But still we can't see the text. It's showing that you are
Exactly.
presenting.
Okay. Can you see that, sir?
No worry, you just fix it up, no problem.
Okay. Now, so can you see that, sir?
It's showing that you are presenting, but yeah, no, perfect.
Okay. This is the first page, the unacceptance of providence of homelessness and urge of belonging in two Bangla novels, Obhijit Sen's Rohu Chandrer Heart and Shubhankar Guho's Dio, a brief review. Now the second one, Okay, sir. I am just telling because I think there's a bit of problem out there. Okay. In my paper, I have discussed about the theme of home. The word home, the word itself, it radiates out a sense of warmth and security, and a sense of belonging and assurance. The word connotes not only a physical space that one shares with one's family or loved ones, but also an atmosphere where one can base the trust for the future, or even an idea where one finds peace with oneself. Home is where we all belong, where we all never get bored to return, where at the day's end we know someone or something will be waiting for us. Each and every human being, individually and socially, is in quest of home, both inwardly and outwardly. Novels, the first one, I have translated the name as The Magic Bone of Rohu. It's a novel by Abhijit Sen, published in 1985 and received Bangim Puruskar in the year 1992. It discusses about the journey of the homelessness nomad group, which is known as Bajikor. Bajikor means they are the jugglers. They are in continuous struggle for settlement and social identity, to find their social identity, to survive. And they are in dire need to belong to the mainstream society, not because they want to belong, because they need this for their existence. They are in their existential crisis. The second novel is Dio. I have translated the name as The Snake Bill. It's a Bengali novel by Shubhankar Guho, published in 2011. And it's a story of another nomad group. It's named as Bedia community, popularly known as the Shapuria, or snake charmers. It's the story of their struggle to find a peaceful settlement and to retain their traditional livelihood. And in both of the novels, what we find that both of the two communities are nomads. They are homeless for ages, and this homelessness is mythically ordained by their mythical tales. They have their different mythical tales, and both of the tales, in those tales, they have been told that they shouldn't stop in a single place. and they follow the myth, and they start going around, and they never stops in a single place. But what happens in the two novels, both of the headmen of these communities, the Bajikar and Bedias, they felt a need for settlement. Why? Because they felt some certain problems regarding their existential crisis. These problems are regarding their identity, because both of the communities, they don't have any specific religious identity, or they didn't have. Now they start in different parts of India. We can see that they have taken different either Hindu or Muslim or Christian, or any other community. They have gone into them, but they usually they didn't want to be either Hindu or Muslim, because they don't share any apathy to any of the like pork and meat. They eat them because they're the travelers, and whatever they get, they don't have any vanity regarding foods. So they wherever they go, and whatever they find, they starts like they are the son of the soil. And this feel regarding this, they feel great resistance from the society, because they can't settle anywhere. There are some common things found in these two societies. They are both controlled and directed by a single headman, and the headman felt the need for settlement. And both from inside the community, the resistance comes, but it's a weak resistance. But strong resistance comes from the mainstream society that do not accept them. They don't accept them to enter the villages. They don't accept them to join in the religious functions or whatever, or any social functions. But as the two communities, they provide medicinal herbs or secret medicinal herbs to the society. The society takes them as well. They take those herbs, but they don't allow them to enter in the community. And what happens? The headman of the community, Rohu Chandra Har, specifically Rohu Chandra Har, this depicts a long journey of the different headmans, and that comes to the final point of somebody representing the young generation. His name is Shariba. So Shariba finds that he didn't get a job. Why? Because he didn't want to share his religious identity as Hindu or Muslim. He said that I am a Bajikar, simply I am Bajikar, and I don't share any religious vanity of the Hindus and Muslims. I identify myself as a Bajikar, so he doesn't get the job. And Shariba thinks that why in the world such kind of things is happening around, because in Rohu Chandra Har we find most of the Bajikars, they found religious shelters under a Maulavi, and they got the Muslim names, and they got the Muslim religious identity. But still after getting the Muslim religious identity, they are not allowed to enter into the Muslim community, because they are regarded as a very outcast and low caste. And in Shubhankar Ghosh Bureau also, we find that they have found a place to settle. But their headman had the wish to get a grave in a place of the settlement. But this didn't happen, because the headman's body wasn't found. And suddenly the Shapuriyas, they heard from other people that the nation in the year 1972, the nation has passed a law that they shouldn't, and it's a very they will be either put into the jail, or they will be taken into the custody if they start again to play the snakes. So at that time, the son of the headman, whose name is Kedar Shapuriya, he starts to think that the nation hasn't given us any security. The nation hasn't given us any mode of livelihood, but still they are taking away our livelihood because it's a law. But the Shapuriyas feel that we are using the snakes, that we are regarding the snakes as our family members, because we play with the snakes and we use their venoms for the medicines, but we don't even actually they regard the snakes as their parents. And after the snakes get old, they just leave them in snake bills and used to provide them food. until the snake leaves. So it's a very devastating kind of situation that they feel that where will they go? They have found a settlement. They found a settlement in Novogram in Murshidabad. Somebody has given them a settlement, but the home, the feeling of home is still is still not achieved. So this feeling of homelessness and the feeling where their next generation will grow and thrive, this still in a dark in a dark night they have feel. So both for in Rahu Chandler heart and both in Dio, we feel that those the people who don't want to be Hindus or don't want to be Muslims, what is wrong with the society or what is wrong with the nation? Because nation is trying every time to put them into some pockets, either this pocket or this pocket you have to go, because without you are going to the pocket, we can't manage the things that we want to manage with you, either the system of democracy, the system of votes, or whatever. And these Bedias and the Shapuriyas and the Bajikos, as they are nomads, as they move from one place to another, they have no, they have not got yet the benefit of voter card. Most of them has got, because I have discussed with the author Shubhankar Gua, and he said about 60% of the people, as he has researched, they have got the voter ID card, but still 40% people are the nomads, and they don't have the voter ID card because they think that voter ID card is not for them. So when nation cannot provide them assurance, nation cannot provide them home, what is the right of nation to give them a voter card and tell them to vote us? So it's a very important thing that I have been searching around. Sorry that I couldn't present my.
Absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. Thank you so much. And this is, I think, one of the most fascinating papers. Like on, I mean, it's asked. It basically contextualize many things. The contemporary debate of nation and nationalism, and I remind of the that during the time of colonial time, they used to, the colonial authority used to paint the entire tribe as a criminal tribe, and
Yes,
and as a Bidya community and peoples of different livelihoods, and these all issues of livelihood, law, and social justice. What I see is that in the entire three papers, the trends, the arguments is like one has to go beyond the idea of binary, so Hindu, Muslim, majority, minority, the we versus them, and one has to go beyond the concept of binary and understanding and unfolding the entire debate of whether it is cases of forced migrations, or the cases of refugee crisis, or whether the issues of sexual orientations and criminalizations of sexual orientations, the issues of recognition. So what do you see that these are the key words: the idea of recognition, self-respect, the idea of dignity, the idea of and how the we approach the inclusive idea of democracy. Well, I won't be speaking much. Already we are a bit running short of time. This floor is open. If you anyone has any questions to a particular speaker, please feel free to raise, and please be brief and short. Amitabh sir, you can stop this so that we can come back to the main screen. Yeah. Uh, uh, anyway, if you don't have, I am a bit curious to know both from Mousrisha, Roy, and Sarfaraj, that of course, I mean, this is really an important issue. We are not doing justice to your paper because of paucity of time, but I see a massive, argument we could build from this of your research, whether it is issues of Syrian refugee crisis and the Nobel Sea Prayer, and that itself shows the kind of climate refugees we have, and how the entire debate of social justice, the debate of right to live dignified life, and how the entire process of globalizations and economic transaction is affecting this kind of values. Just one pinpoint questions to Mr. Sarfaraj, that when you have used the word cosmopolitanism, I'm reminding of a concept called rooted cosmopolitanism by Anthony Apaya. And how do you contextualize the idea of cosmopolitanism in the contemporary world? And one short questions to Mousrisha Roy, that well, how do you see, I mean, of course, the way we understand normal and the way the entire process of identity formations and the role of social hierarchy and social institutions, how do you see the entire debate of decriminalizing of sexual orientations in different parts of the world? And how do you see are what are the way forward in that sense? All these are big questions, but in a nutshell. And the last one is very thanks for especially this Bior, and this is an important novel, though when I also personally have not read this, and I would love to read how you understand the entire debate of law, livelihood, traditional livelihood, and the questions of economic justice, questions of recognitions, basically how you understand the questions of recognitions in the post-colonial imaginations of nations. With this, I would maybe you can respond now, or you can respond later as well. There's no urgency because we're already running short of time, but I would love to open this floor, maybe one minute each, if that possible. Please go ahead, then we will wind up this session. Thank you. That same order, Nawab, Sarfaraj, and then Mousrisha, and then the Omita. Yeah. Anyway, we can have discussions later on as well. We are having your email ID. Maybe later on, I'm really interested in all these three important contributions. Though it's not my field, but we use political philosophy to understand, and novel one of the important methodology to deal with this kind of contemporary political debates. Thanks for your presentations, and we are really looking forward to you in future collaborations with you. With these words, I would like to thank, and over to Jahira and the base organizers.
Thank you so much, Matin sir, and thanks to all the paper presenters for the wonderful papers and presentation. Now, on behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to request Tania Parveen to deliver the short vote of thanks for this session. So this is over to you, Tania.
Thank you, Jahira. I'd like to thanks BASE to giving me the opportunity to vote of thanks. On behalf of BASE, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks and gratitude to the all presenter for their excellent presentation. Thank you all. I would also like to thank Professor Abdul Matin for chairing today's session. Thank you, sir, for being here. I coordinately thanks to the all participants who joined the session. Last but not the least, I must thank organizing committee and all the members of BASE for constantly working on it and making this successful session. Thanks once again. Over to you, Jayadip. Thank you.